What do you suppose this gentleman is mixing up? Whatever it is, that's a nice color. But what exactly is that chemical? And why does it need to be added? Well, that's because of the very specific purpose this paint is being used for. And you'll see shortly, it's even being strained here to ensure nothing that shouldn't be in there gets in. That's because this needs to be just the right consistency in order for this airbrush gun to atomize the paint properly, allowing for those thin, even layers that make the unbelievable job it does. And if you want to use one of these to paint your car, there are some steps to take. And the first thing you want to do, of course, is gather all the quality tools and equipment, do plenty of research before making any purchases, especially when it comes to the airbrush gun, the compressor, the paint, and more. You want to make sure you practice the technique so that you're not just wasting money and ruining the car in the end. At least leaving yourself more work having to sand it all down again. Now before painting, that's exactly what you want to do. To even out the surface of the vehicle by wet sanding with a fine grit sandpaper, making sure to remove any rust, filling any dents, scratches, and dings in the surface with filler. Use a quality material. And then, once that's done, you can get on to sanding again until everything's nice and smooth, and then on to applying layers of primer. And yes, you can apply the primer with the same airbrush gun. Just make sure to be cleaning it out, including the canister, the nozzle, and more every time you change the paint. That's from primer to paint, and then from paint to the gloss coat you may lay on in the end. This is also dangerous to inhale, so important to remember you need to work in a well-ventilated area and should be wearing a respirator. That goes for while you're sanding, as a lot of particulate goes into the air, and when you're painting as well, as you can see, plenty of that just blasted into the air around the vehicle. Also important to make sure the vehicle isn't somewhere where dust and debris is going to settle, so not a bad idea to use some tarp or some plastic to section off an area to keep things from floating your way and settling on that wet paint. Other important things to consider: masking off parts of the vehicle you don't want painted. In this case, it looks like that's not a problem. This is a project car, and one that's been pretty stripped down, with everything masked off properly, with all the tools in place. The key then, just using even strokes, not allowing that paint to pool and create runs along the surface.